All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and as you can see by the title, it is time for another 2024 mock draft. This time it's a 7-rounder. The first one I did a couple of months ago was like a 5-rounder. Now we've taken it up to a 7th-rounder. So this is my second mock draft so far for the 2024 draft, but this is my first full 7-round one. And this one is going to be designed from the viewpoint of a Eugene Shen. Of course, a lot of y'all, if you saw my video that came out on my birthday, which was Thursday, November 30th, I did a full breakdown of Eugene Shen, how he likes to build teams. I did a full breakdown on his track record and how he's turned a lot of teams around to become some of the better teams in the NFL, most notably the Ravens, the Dolphins, and what the Jaguars look like right now. He played a huge role in all of those. So again, if you haven't checked that video out, that's like a whole 30-minute plus breakdown just on him. So this mock draft, knowing what I know about Eugene Shen and what he prefers by position group, which positions he values the most, which ones he feels like are overvalued, which ones he feels like are undervalued, all of that type of stuff. And of course, in that video, we talk about like how he prefers to go for on 4th downs. Does he prefer to go for 2-point conversion? All that type of stuff. But most notably, one of his famous quotes was, one of the most notable quotes was that he prefers 2 lower picks over 1 higher one. So we're going to do a small trade back to acquire more picks. We're going to talk about what picks we acquire and why we end up having how many picks. We ended up having 9 picks out of the top 110 picks in the draft, 4 top 41 picks. Hey, man. A new GM, head coach, defensive coordinator, the new regime would be salivating over a team with that, especially with all of the cap space we're going to eventually have as well. We're estimated to have like the 3rd most cap space, and that's before you even release Charles Leno. You could cut Charles Leno to save like another $8-9 million to take it almost $100 million, and we probably become like the 2nd most cap space. So top 3 cap space. If you do this trade back, 4 top 41 picks, who wouldn't love that? I know Ben Johnson didn't take that Carolina Panthers job the last year. He probably doesn't want to be a part of that dumpster fire again this year coming up, but maybe he looks at us and is like, man, I could do something with that. I could immediately leave my mark with that type of off-season capital to rebuild a team. But again, we're focusing on the mock draft, so I'm gonna break down how we got those picks, who we traded back with, and then of course we're gonna break down every player we got. And with each player, I'm gonna break down why the need is present, why we would even take a player at that position just in general, and then I talk about why that player specifically. So if you know, just stay with me. Every player that we break down from all of these picks, why there's a need, and because we're gonna take a look at like the roster, like, okay, this guy may be leaving in free agency. They're an unrestricted free agent. Their contract ends after the end of this 2023 season, or we just straight up have a weakness at that position. And then we're also got to, of course, talk about the player himself, weaknesses, strengths, ceiling, all of that type of stuff. So yeah, man, before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you can get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. If you enjoy a lot of team building content, not only just like draft wise mock drafts, of course we're going to start exploring like team needs as we get closer to the end of the season. We're going to start exploring free agency things as well, like the top free agents of every position group, especially the ones where we have the biggest needs at. I'm going to start doing mock off seasons as well, not only just mock drafts, but mock off seasons where we sign certain players at certain positions for how many years, how much money, like, you know, do some example mock contracts on top of everything else. So, and of course I'm working on videos for the best GM candidates for us, the best head coaching candidates for us, the best defensive coordinator candidates. And you never know, Eric Bieniemy may not be a sure thing staying here in any capacity, head coach or offensive coordinator. So I may do a video on potential best offensive coordinators that we can bring over here as well. And then I may try to do like a whole separate video, because each of those are going to be separate videos. GM one video, head coaches one video, defensive coordinator, so on and so forth. But then I'm probably going to do a video of my dream case scenario if I had to choose one from each of the ones. And it may not be my favorite GM with my favorite head coach. It may be my favorite GM with the head coach that is most suitable to work under him, because they see the same things, if you get what I'm saying. So stay tuned for so much content coming out, man. Y'all know I'm the draft GOAT, the draft guru, so stay tuned because we have a lot of team building stuff to do. I'm telling you, I'm a GM at heart. I'm one of those guys that almost probably enjoys the off season just as much as the regular season. It'd be nice if we had a postseason to speak on though. So, but yeah, man, I'm sorry for the really long intro. I'm just super hyped and excited about all of the content I have going because I have so many ideas. And every time we get some more breaking news that comes out, it just pushes my ideas back another day. So stay tuned. And man, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the video. Let's get it.
He's our quarterback for the 5-10 years, and I truly believe that.
All right, so before we dive into everything, let me just give you a breakdown. But like the little preface, everything, the background information before we get to the actual mock draft. So first of all, I'm trading back, like I explained in the intro briefly, because Eugene Shen said in his press conference video to Florida Atlantic's business school that he prefers 2 lower picks over 1 higher one. So we are definitely more likely to trade back now that Eugene Shen is here. And I think he's going to have more power than a lot of people believe, because I think they're more than likely going to hire a head coach that's extremely analytically based and very innovative and forward thinking like him. Josh Harris was preaching that he wanted to do that since before he even bought the team. Eugene Shen is his first move towards the future that he's envisioning for the Burgundy and Gold, his new favorite toy, the team he just purchased with the help of a few other guys, Magic Johnson, and all of these other guys, but he's kind of like the face of it and the leader because he owns the majority of it, but he doesn't own all of it. He actually doesn't own the majority of it. He just owns the biggest piece in comparison to other individuals that own pieces of the franchise. But either way, besides going on that tangent, again, Josh Harris and Eugene Shen are envisioning a very analytics forward, innovative Burgundy and Gold organization. Eugene Shen is basically coming here to do what he did for the Dolphins, Ravens, and Jaguars. With the Dolphins, he was more so coaching based, like what do we do on 4th downs? What do we do on 2-point conversions? More so like decision making things as far as the X's and O's and what do we do in a certain, when do we use timeout, stuff like that. And then he went to the Dolphins. It was more on the player personnel team building side. Which players do we draft? Which players do we prioritize in free agency in the draft? All of that type of stuff. What type of contracts do we do? All of that type of stuff. And then he went to the Jaguars and did both. And then he's pretty much coming over here to do the same thing, to pretty much run the entire show behind the scenes. So I'm saying all of that to say that the GM will probably come in and have a lot of power, but I think he's going to share quite a bit of that power with Eugene Shen. And Josh Harris and Eugene Shen are probably going to hire a guy that's on the same page with them and not a guy that wants to come in here and conflict with everything. So that's why I'm saying that this draft may be very Eugene Shen led, even with the new GM, new head coach and stuff like that, because the GM and head coach may be on the same exact wavelength of a Eugene Shen, because I'm pretty sure Eugene Shen, using his analytics, is going to help with the hiring process for said GM and head coach. So just don't be surprised if we trade back in this draft, especially if we end up with a top 5 pick, which is looking very likely. There's scenarios where we could move up to number 4 or 3. Highly doubt 2 or 1, but I think it's safe to assume that we'll probably end up with the 5th pick, especially looking at the remaining schedule that we have. We had the third easiest schedule up to this point, and then including playing the Dolphins, we're going to have the third hardest schedule. So if we couldn't win games when it was the 3rd easiest, I don't know what we're going to do 3rd hardest. So we're going to end up with a top 5 pick. I'm almost sure of it, and I'm excited as a team builder. Number 2, using Pro Football Focus Mock Draft Simulator, I was able to move back from 5th overall in the 1st round to 9th overall in the 1st round. And also added the Chargers' 41st and 109th draft picks in the process. So I gave them the 5th overall pick. They gave us the 9th, 41st, and 109th picks. So that would give us 1 3rd round pick and 3 seconds. That's going to be fun. That's 4 top 41 picks and 9 picks in the top 109 picks. So this is the type of draft capital that, again, a new GM, new head coach, new defensive coordinator, and just a whole new regime would dream of having. If you were to take over a team, this would be perfect, because the Carolina Panthers kind of did it backwards. They started with a whole new regime, but then they spent a lot of their draft capital to trade up for that quarterback. Hopefully, if Sam Howell is the franchise guy, I think he is, but it's up to the next regime, including Eugene Shen and Josh Harris, to make that decision as well. Mostly Eugene Shen more than Josh Harris, but the new GM head coach, all of that type of stuff, it's up to them really. And if they decide that, we have a lot of capital to build around them. Rather than spending all of our capital to get the quarterback, we hopefully already have the quarterback, and we can just use all that free agency cap space, all of those draft picks, all of that draft capital to build around them, which is the complete opposite of how the Carolina Panthers went about it last offseason, and look at where they're at now. So I'm excited about our future, man. And this is actually a very realistic trade back scenario. I didn't go back back too far. I didn't want to go from like 5 to like 15 or later, like somewhere in the 20s, because that's just less likely. That's moving really far back. And yeah, you would get a lot of great picks from it, but you would also miss out on elite players potentially. And I wanted to make sure we definitely got this one elite player who we're picking first. You'll see. And then my third and final point before we get to this draft, because again, we're 10 minutes in, we haven't even started yet. I apologize, but I know I'm just super excited. Don't worry, at 9, we will have our pick at team needs. So what we need, as far as like tackle, tight end, whatever you want to say, with all of the elite wide receivers and quarterbacks in this draft, and also more than one great tackle that we would be happy to get. It can be several of them. There's like 3 or 4 tackles I'd be elated to get in the first round. So with it being a lot of elite receivers, a lot of elite quarterbacks, and several tackles to choose from, somebody that we really want will still be there at 9 in this scenario. We do not have to stay at 5 to get an elite player that could change this franchise around. But it's not my boy Brock Bowers, though. It is round 1, 9th pick overall, offensive tackle Joe Alt from Notre Dame. If you believe that Sam Howell has great potential to be our franchise quarterback like I do, then defensive tackle is more than likely our biggest need in most people's eyes. Me personally, again, like I've been saying, I would prefer Brock Bowers because I feel like there is only one of him, but there are several tackles I'd be very happy to get. Like I love Joe Alt, and again, I can admit that tackle is a more premium position. It's a more important position to get right. Tight end is more so kind of like candy, I guess you could say. Like it's kind of like dessert in a way, where it's like, you know, it would be great to have it, and that can take your team from good to elite, but you need a really good tackle to go from bad to great. It's hard to go from bad to great with a tight end. I can see that, even though I think Brock Bowers is one of the very few tight ends that's ever going to play football, at least in our lifetime, that can transcend that. I think he's going to be a Travis Kelce level player, to where even if the offensive line is bad, you can still be great with them, especially if Sam Howell's on point, and having an elite tight end like him. Again, Eugene Shen just fully preached, did a whole segment on itself about how much of a priority having a dual threat tight end is to the way he likes to build his team. So I wouldn't be surprised that if we somehow ended up with a Brock Bowers, but I don't want to draft Brock Bowers in every mock draft that I do. So we're going to go tackle this time. Again, I see the argument for going tackle, and I'm taking tackle in this mock draft, but I'm telling you, I think a lot of people are really sleep on how elite Brock Bowers is and how you can change your offense. You literally run the ball better and pass the ball better because of that guy. He's technically an offensive lineman and a receiver in one. I would prefer him over the receivers. I'm sorry, that's just me. We could debate about tackle, but I feel like obviously receiver-wise, if I needed a receiver and tight end, I'm taking Brock Bowers. That's just me. But let's get to Joe Alt. I don't want to talk about that too long. Because again, there's just several tackles I would love to get. Joe Alt may be my favorite one, maybe, but I would be happy with either one. But the interesting part about Joe Alt is that, man, he's probably one of the most can't miss prospects I've seen come out of a draft in years. Not even just this draft alone, but just several drafts, even specifically just at tackle. He's the most can't miss you can do, bro. He's the safest tackle in this class at the very least, I feel like. And I also have a strong feeling in December that Olu Fashanu will probably go first out of the tackle draft class. Out of all of the tackles, I think he may end up going first for having the higher ceiling. So I think Joe Alt could actually be there at 9th overall, again, with all of the elite receivers, all of the elite quarterbacks. Brock Bowers is probably going to go, and there's more than one tackle, including Olu Fashanu. Maybe somebody prefers J.C. Latham from Alabama over Joe Alt. You never know. I think Joe Alt will definitely be available if we trade back to the 9th pick. But getting to Joe Alt specifically, I mean, he literally checks every box to be a Pro Bowl, even all-pro level franchise left tackle, in my opinion. You literally cannot miss when you take a Joe Alt. He's just one of those guys you know for sure he's going to be great. Because even though Olu Fashanu may have a higher ceiling, I can see the argument for that. In a direct comparison, Joe Alt played obviously better against Ohio State than Olu Fashanu did. Like, if you're literally comparing how Joe Alt with Notre Dame played against Ohio State versus how Olu Fashanu at Penn State played against Ohio State, Joe Alt looked better against the same exact defensive lineman. The same exact one. So that alone, if he's there 9th overall, we trade back to that pick, you sprint to the podium to get him. You have to. You just can't miss with him. Like, especially, I mean, if Brock Bowers didn't exist, I would be screaming for Joe Alt right now. I probably wouldn't even trade back from 5th overall. I'd be like, man, you can't even risk that. He's that great. I'm telling you right now. Moving on to round 2, 36th overall, we're taking another tackle. I'm sorry. My boy Amarius Mims from Georgia, if he's available early in the 2nd round with that pick that we got from the Bears for Montez Sweat, you are sprinting to the podium to get him. Let me explain why. Again, for each player, we're going to talk about why the need is there. And then the second half of it, for each player, we're talking about the player himself and why I would take him out of any other player playing that position. So, again, to repeat the pattern, with how Charles Leno and Andrew Wiley have looked this season with crazy inconsistencies, it seemed like Wiley at one point was our worst offensive lineman on the entire team for like the first half of the season. Now it feels like it's been Leno as of late. So if Amarius Mims is there in the second somehow, which is likely just because of his lack of games played and assumed rawness, he's fairly raw in certain areas, but I don't think that will be a problem. I think once the combine happens, he's not making it out of the top half of the first round, honestly. But right now, if you're looking at big boards and mock drafts, a lot of people are saying he definitely will be there. So I'm going to take advantage of people falling asleep on my Amarius Mims. And in my mock draft, I'm taking Joe Alt to be our starting left tackle and Amarius Mims to be our starting right tackle, bro. I'm telling you, bro. That man is different. Moving on to who he is, he's the highest ceiling tackle I've seen come out of the draft in years. And yes, in my opinion, he has an even higher ceiling than Darnell Wright and DeJuan Jones from last year's draft. I'm telling you, he has a higher ceiling than Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt, any of these guys. I'm dead serious. But y'all will see at the combine. Matter of fact, as long as he stays healthy, you'll see when we go to these playoffs and three-peat real quick. You'll see him a lot in the shining lights, the bright lights for everybody watching. You'll see. That's probably only going to increase his draft stock as we go to three-peat anyway. Speaking of three-peating, round 2, 38th overall, I have us taking cornerback Kamari Lassiter, also from Georgia. The breakdown, the next regime may not feel the need to re-sign Kendall Fuller, and Fuller Emmanuel Forbes had a disappointing rookie season that also ended with a pretty bad elbow injury that he's dealing with right now. He may not play another game for the rest of this season. And then on top of all of that, Benjamin St-Juste had games where he was getting picked on, like that Cowboys game on Thanksgiving. So we have a bigger need at corner than a lot of people realize. I'm telling you that right now. You're going to see when we get to this offseason, just even if we re-sign Fuller, which I don't think that's guaranteed at all. With this age, the next regime may prefer to go to a system, a new defensive coordinator, all of that type of stuff, a new system to where Kendall Fuller wouldn't be as useful. Maybe they prefer more athletic corners and things like that. I love Kendall Fuller. He's the best tackling corner we've had on this team for years now. He's the best at breaking up screen passes. He's so consistent. He's our pick six guy. I love Kendall Fuller, but I'm just telling you now that the next regime more than likely will not. They're probably going to try to go as young and in many places as possible. And Eugene Shen even talked about it when he was talking about running backs. He may feel the same way about other positions as well. This may just be his general thinking as far as team building in general, not just the running back position. But like I explained in that video, again, if you haven't checked that out, it's a full 30-minute breakdown of everything. But another piece of it was that he'd prefer to draft the running back high in the draft rather than pay one too much money as a veteran in free agency. So his thinking is, I'll just draft one rather than give them money in free agency to get a veteran. So instead of Kendall Fuller may ask for more money than what the next regime is willing to give him. Most notably, again, this is in the mind of Eugene Shen. This is the point of view of Eugene Shen. This is his mock draft. I'm not entirely too sure if they'll be willing to keep Kendall Fuller. Now, Kendall Fuller, in my opinion, I hope that he ends up taking a cheap, medium term contract, like a nice 2-3 year, a really team friendly deal. I'm hoping he does that, but it's not very likely. He may end up going elsewhere. So no Kendall Fuller, very likely. Benjamin St-Juste getting picked on. Emmanuel Forbes, disappointing rookie season and hurt. We need corner bad. And so Kamari Lassiter, go ahead and get it out the way. Probably best cover corner in the draft, point blank period. I'm not trolling. I'm dead serious. Hear me now. Watch the rest of this college football postseason and believe me later. Hear me now. Believe me later. Elite man cover corner, and he gets lazy in zone coverage at times, I can admit, but he has the potential to be an elite zone cover corner as well. He's easily, in my opinion, and a lot of people who I trust opinions as well, the best cover corner UGA has had the entire time in Kirby Smart's era. And I'm not even sure if it's necessarily debatable. I don't think people understand how good Kamari Lassiter is, because so much attention is on Kool-Aid McKinstry at Alabama and a lot of guys. You'll see when Kamari Lassiter is shutting down a lot of these top receivers in this postseason, his draft stock's going to rise. He probably won't even be available with the 38th overall pick. But as of right now, again, since a lot of people's draft boards have him that low, have him going somewhere in the 40s and 50s, he's a steal with the 38th overall pick. And since we haven't had the combine, we haven't had the postseason for college football yet, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that a lot of people are sleeping on these prospects and have fun with my mock draft. I know by the time we get to April, he won't be there, 38th overall, but I'm having fun right now because on everybody's big board, he is. Moving on, round 2. 41st pick overall, I have us taking tight end Jatavion Sanders from Texas. We definitely have a need for tight end. If we're not taking Brock Bowers, because a lot of y'all definitely prefer tackle over Brock Bowers, and let me just go ahead and get this out the way. It's not like I'm so Brock Bowers that if we draft Joe Olafashanu, I'm disappointed or mad and Brock Bowers is available. I would be extremely ecstatic to have either of those elite players. Even if we took a Marvin Harrison, and I don't even feel like receivers even a top 5 need for us. Even if we took Marvin Harrison Jr., somehow he makes it past one of those Chicago picks. I would be ecstatic about that. I just want an elite player. I'm tired of taking the safe, relatively medium, high-ish floor guys without a high ceiling. I'm sick of it. I'm really tired of taking the safe guys. So let me just make this perfectly clear. I would be extremely happy with either of those elite players. Tackle, tight end, receiver, whatever. I just prefer to avoid quarterback because I think Sam Howell can be the guy, and I feel like that's a waste of draft capital. Instead of drafting your quarterback, you already have him. Use all of that capital to build around him. And even if you don't like Sam Howell by the end of the season, now you have a great team ready, and all you need to do is just plop the quarterback there. But yeah, man, I would be extremely excited to get either of those guys. So don't get it confused like I'm just super duper Brock Bowers or bust at all. I would be happy to get anybody. Even if we're there at pick 9 and Brock Bowers and Joe Alt are both there and we take Joe Alt, I'm still jumping for joy. I just, for reasons I've already explained, I do prefer Brock Bowers. But, again, we have a strong needed tight end regardless. So we take Joe Alt in the first round. We miss out on Brock Bowers. Honestly, I don't even really need to take that much time to explain it for real. The quickest way to make my point is that we have a fairly injury-prone, 33-year-old as of July tight end. That's basically taking up 90% of our tight end production right now alone. So that's all I need to say. That's it. Again, Brock Bowers is my dream draft pick, but I'm not about to keep taking him on all my mock drafts as well. You're probably going to see another mock draft with Brock Bowers in it, but I'm not about to keep spamming y'all with Brock Bowers in my mock drafts. We need to switch it up. I need to be able to talk about other players. I need to start putting y'all on to other players. So a lot of my mock draft strategies just deal with, well, I already put y'all on to these couple of players last time. Let me put y'all on to some new ones. Even if I still kind of prefer some of those other players, maybe now I want to put y'all on the new players, or it's been long enough. It's been a couple of months. I've watched more college. There's been more college games that's actually been available to watch that have played live. So maybe I've changed my mind, or a lot of the times I'm really just trying to put y'all on to more players, especially when we get to the later rounds and stuff for the draft picks. So with these mock drafts, it's a fun way to rebuild the Commanders, but it's also a fun way to be like, hey, look, man, y'all might be sleeping on this guy, and like you might be able to get him in the 5th round type of stuff. So, but Jatavion Sanders, bruh, if you miss out on Brock Bowers, he's the next best thing. There's a considerable gap, in my opinion. Of course, I think Brock Bowers is generational. I think Jatavion Sanders is really good, like really, really good. It has the potential to be like maybe even a top 12, top 10 tight end in the NFL. He may not be that day one like I think Brock Bowers will be, but if you're looking for a potential game-changing dual-threat tight end that could be Sam Howell's favorite target while also being playable on run plays, because that's the thing, bruh. There's quite a few good receiving tight ends out there. There's some good blocking ones. It's very difficult to find a guy that can do both very well. Jatavion has the potential to do that. He's more of a receiving tight end than a blocking tight end, but he can block well enough to where you don't have to take him off the field in, say, like a situation like 3rd and goal. And again, Eugene Shen kept preaching that. To have a tight end that's able to hide, run, pass, where he's on the field, you don't know if we're going to pass the ball or run the ball, which keeps defenses on their toes, keeps them balanced, and it makes it easier for the offense to attack them. Because I've been screaming this for years. Back when we had Jordan Reed, Vernon Davis, and like Jeremy Sprinkle's on the field, teams know we're running the ball because there's no way we're throwing on the ball with his butterfingers. And then when Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis are on the field, they know we're more than likely passing the ball because we better not dare run that ball and especially run it to their side. That's why a dual threat tight end is so valuable. And I completely agree with Eugene Shen right there. I'm so happy that he feels the exact same way. If you're looking for that, you can definitely get that in Jatavion, my boy Jatavion Sanders, man. I truly believe so. Again, with the series is Eugene Shen is about tight ends, we may even attack the tight end position with real intent this offseason to the point that we may make a pretty big tight end signing like a Dalton Schultz and take a tight end in day 2 of the draft. Like he's really serious about finding a dual threat tight end, and we may not take any chances waiting until the draft to see if we may get one. We may attack that aggressively in free agency and take one in the draft. And Jatavion, honestly, in my opinion, would be talked way more about if Brock Bowers just didn't exist. If Brock Bowers didn't exist, Jatavion would be talked about more as like the best tight end in this class, but everybody looks at Brock Bowers and look at Jatavion, and it's kind of not fair to him because if you put him in other draft classes, he may even be the best tight end in those draft classes. He's an extremely slept on player, dog. I honestly think by the time it's all said and done, he won't be available 41st overall either. I think he deserves to go in the first round whether he does or not. Next up, round 3, 69th pick overall, I was taking center Sedrick Van Pran from Georgia. I took him in my last mock draft, but I don't think y'all understand how serious I am about this tight end position and how serious I am about Sedrick Van Pran himself. Again, let's talk about the center position first of all. Tyler Larson's cool. I'm already just mentally moved on from Nick Gates. I'm assuming he's not starting for center for us ever again, especially with the new regime coming in. Tyler Larson, again, he's been cool, but I would go get a center in the draft for, if anything, at least to be more competition for the underwhelming rookie and Ricky Strongberg that also missed half the season due to injury. I don't feel like Strongberg, first of all, was worth a 3rd round pick in the first place, but to make it simple, if Sedrick Van Pran and Ricky Strongberg came out in the same draft, I would easily prefer Sedrick Van Pran just straight up. Now, I'm still rooting for Strongberg to be a good player eventually, because that's just who I am. I'm Mr. Optimistic, so once they're here, I'm like, I hope they work out. I can see these positives. I see these different angles that if we do this, maybe he can be better and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, Sedrick Van Pran is better than Ricky Strongberg, point blank, period. Just straight up. And the next regime may not even be attached to any players that matter. No matter how high they were drafted, no matter how high a player was drafted by Rivera and Martin Mayhew, the next regime may come in and be like, I don't care. I'm ready to rebuild this team from scratch. I don't like this player. Y'all thought Ricky Strongberg was worth a 3rd round pick. Maybe we, as in the next regime, thought he was like a 5th or a 6th like most people thought. So we don't look at him as a 3rd round pick. He can walk. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? I like Ricky Strongberg again. I hope he develops. But if we get to the draft process and my boy Sedrick Van Pran is available in the 3rd round, you're sprinting to the podium to get him. He's that great of a player. He's not making it there, just point blank period. But again, I'm having fun with this mock draft because when you look at a lot of big boards, they say he will be. But I already know after this postseason and the combine and stuff like that, he will not be. But long story short, I hope Ricky Strongberg works out. But I'm not banking on Strongberg working out and putting our franchise quarterback at risk like that. And I like Tyler Larson a lot, but he's a good backup. But I for sure prefer for him to be a backup that only plays due to injury. I don't want to just go out there week 1 of the regular season. Hey, Tyler Larson's our starting center for you, Sam Howell. But I like him. I want to keep him here long term as a backup. Just keep giving him nice little cheap team friendly contracts. But nah, it's time to go get a for real, for sure Pro Bowl level center, please, and Sedrick Van Pran. Moving on. Now, I don't see why Sedrick Van Pran will still be available this far into the draft, like I already explained, but everywhere I look at draft big boards on different websites, people have him going in this range or even later. I don't think that will hold up by the time April comes around, but while he's there on these draft boards, I'm going to take him. I keep telling you that. Even if it is a pipe dream, I can admit that. So to me, he's the best center in the draft. And I know some of y'all don't like the fact that I'm taking so many UJ players in my mock drafts, but there's a reason that we are back-to-back national champs and also favorite to win a 3rd in a row. And we look like the best team in the country regardless of what happens for the remainder of this postseason or whatever. So, yeah, a lot of it is great coaching. Shouts out to our DB's coach getting that head coaching job for Syracuse, my boy Fran Brown. We have elite coaching. Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart, of course, all over the place. My boy Todd Hartley, everywhere, every position group, but especially like on the defensive side of the ball, all levels, tight ends, all of that type of stuff. And then, man, I'm so sad to see Fran Brown go to Syracuse. But again, shouts out to him. But even with elite coaching, you also just have to have the talent. At the end of the day, especially as we start to get to the postseason and stuff like that, you got to win your one-on-ones. There's nothing a coach can tell you to do or say or coach you up on. At the end of the day, you just got to have the talent. It's literally that simple. That's why it's the same teams always in the picture. So My main point is people didn't have a problem with the Commanders constantly drafting Alabama players all the time a couple of years ago, but suddenly now it's a problem when UGA is arguably having the best run in college football history. I don't want to hear none of that. Get good. Now moving on, still in the third round, 100th overall, I was taking linebacker Payton Wilson from NC State. Everybody in Commanders Nation knows we need a linebacker bad. Really bad. And I feel like we needed to draft one within the first 3 rounds last year, and we decided to not draft one at all in any round. Now, I mean, we brought in Cody Barton, but that wasn't significant enough. Now, we didn't realize how much we missed the water until the well ran dry, going from Cody Barton to David Mayo and company. But still, we need to upgrade over Cody Barton. We need to upgrade over Jamin Day. We just need a better starting linebacker. I don't believe that if we're going to have a successful defense in 2024 right now, that the best linebacker that we're going to throw out there is currently on the team. I just highly doubt that. So we need to get really aggressive and get a good linebacker, even in free agency, just to play it safe. Do both, especially since we are very likely to draft a lot of offensive players in the first 2 days, the first 3 rounds of the draft, especially O-line and stuff like that, like we already discussed. I wouldn't be surprised if we finally get away from the bargain bin shopping that we've been doing under Ron Rivera and company and become a more aggressive team building team and doing what other great teams are doing whatever it takes to get a great off-ball linebacker to the caliber of like a Frankie Lavu, Willie Gay, Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Patrick Queen, Jordan Brooks, Drew Tranquil, Blake Cashman, Aziz Al-Ashir, Devin White. All of these guys are unrestricted free agents heading into this upcoming free agency period. I would be surprised if we don't at least snag one of those guys. I'm not gonna lie. I also think we will probably really try and get one of those top edge rushers to replace Chase Young or Montez Sweat, so like a Brian Burns or Josh Allen. We may spend a lot of our free agency money on linebacker and edge rusher, off-ball linebacker, and maybe like an outside linebacker less edge rusher, and then we're gonna spend most of the draft on offense. I would not be surprised if that's how it goes. It may not. I may look stupid a few months from now, but I really think that would probably be the smartest way to go about it. Go ahead and get certified ballers at linebacker and edge rusher, and then you can do all your little having fun in the draft with the offensive side. But moving on, we still haven't talked about Payton Wilson. Well, let me put you on to a well-kept secret in this draft right now. Again, one of the primary top 3 reasons I do these mock drafts is to put y'all on to people that I found or stumbled upon. I don't know why people don't have this guy higher in their draft boards, but this Payton Wilson guy is dangerous. He's not making it to the 100th pick overall, I feel like, by the time we get to April. I really don't. He's 6'4", 238 pounds, with room to grow and get even bigger and stronger to be our true Mike linebacker that we've been searching for years, even dating back to Zach Wilson. We technically haven't really had a certified Mike linebacker. I mean, did I say Zach Brown? My fault. Whatever his name was, they used to blitz a lot. We haven't technically had one since like 2012 London Fletcher. Can we please get one, please? Like, I beg you. So again, this is a 6'4", 238 pound guy that's predicted to run a 4.54 at the very slowest and record a vertical jump at 36 inches at the smallest. Fast, really fast freak athlete for his size, and has great explosion. So when he's in coverage, he has to break on the ball, or if he has to engage with a pulling guard that's about to that's coming and running full speed at him, he's the guy that has the explosive legs and body to be able to take those collisions head on and even shed them to make plays against the run. To me, he's really like the closest thing to the Lions 2023 first round draft pick. Y'all remember Jack Campbell in last draft that a lot of us wanted him. I think he's like probably the closest thing to him in this upcoming linebacker draft class. Now, of course, those Clemson boys are different. Ohio State has a couple of guys. Alabama has a couple of guys. I think Georgia has some guys that are being slept on, Smile Monday and Jamon Dumas-Johnson and stuff like that. But you could argue all of those guys are maybe better or around Payton Wilson, but I'm telling you, Payton Wilson is extremely slept on, and you could argue he probably has the highest ceiling out of any linebacker in his class. I still have a lot more research to do, a lot more tape to watch, so that's just off my limited knowledge on the draft class so far. There may be a few guys with higher ceilings, but so far from what I've seen, I think he's gonna probably end up having the highest ceiling. Moving on, round 4, 106th overall, I was taking running back Marquise Bucky Irving from Oregon. Does the next regime even want to re-sign Antonio Gibson? And even though I like Chris Rodriguez, those fumbles are scary. And the next regime has it poses no requirement to be loyal to Rivera and Bieniemy's 6th round pick from last year's draft. They don't. Brian Robinson looks like a premier back right now. He's top 8 in several running back stats, including, most importantly, receiving yards, blocking, yards after contact, some of the most important metrics that define whether a running back is really good or not. He's top 8 at the very least, like 5th and 4th in all of those stats, which is amazing. So we just really need somebody to complement him. And with as much as Eugene Shen values running backs in the draft, and with how much Eugene Shen wants to be a severely pass-first, pass-heavy team, we may go all in and get the next Chris Thompson / JD McKissick, but like a JD McKissick that doesn't slip on air for no reason type of guy. Also, if the next regime isn't attached to Jamison Crowder, even though I did feel like he did a pretty good job this season whenever they did actually block for him on punt returns, you would be knocking out multiple birds with one stone by also drafting Bucky Irving to be our punt return and kick return specialist. He has that much potential and talent to him. Would definitely be a steal in the 4th round. I truly hope that we end up re-signing Gibson to a cheap long-term contract, but just in case we don't, you have my boy Marquise Bucky Irving from Oregon. Simply put, he's the ideal 3rd round back. You just really can't beat it. He's only 195 pounds, but he has the type of frame that can easily add weight if you want him to. But he also has great vision, which is something that for some reason some running backs just get to the NFL and it takes them forever to get that or never do. I mean, example, Trent Richardson, all that talent, and the one thing you could argue he was lacking was vision, and he was just literally unplayable because of it. That's why the Pittsburgh Steelers are struggling with their Alabama running back right now. And that's the difference between, and let me just go ahead and be petty right now, that's the difference between UJ running backs and Alabama running backs. Even though Alabama doesn't have a lot of great running backs, the way y'all offensive line is so great, a lot of the times y'all running backs don't even have to worry about vision because your offensive line is so great. Georgia's offensive lines be great too, but we make sure we teach them that vision before they get up out of here. I don't know what's going on with Trent Wilson and that boy Najee Harris over there, boy. But that's just me being petty, though. That's a small sample size. I just had to go ahead and take a jab at Alabama, especially with that game coming up, man. But yeah, man, this guy is different. Great vision, excellent receiving back out of the backfield. He hasn't ran a lot of routes because spread offense, Oregon. It's not like he has this very extensive route tree. This is the type of guy you saw. Saquon Barkley was killing Jamin Davis on wheel routes or whatever. How the Falcons use Bijan Robinson. You can literally do that with this guy. And then his hands are excellent. You do not have to worry about him dropping passes. He catches the ball like a receiver, and he has the ability to make people miss, which is both great as a running back and a returner. This is a steal in the 4th round. I'm telling y'all right now, do not sleep on Marquise Bucky Irving. If you haven't heard the name, just go check out some highlights. I'm telling y'all, him with Brian Robinson, if we let Antonio Gibson go. I hope we bring back Antonio Gibson, but even if we do bring back Antonio Gibson, this guy at the very least could be our punt returner, but also a nice little change of pace running back, all that type of stuff. Because Antonio Gibson is technically a 3rd down back. We prefer him out in space, but he's still built like a linebacker. He can run in between the tackles and bang it. He just got to stop fumbling the ball. Now, round 5, 140th overall, I was taking wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant. I think that's how you pronounce that. I haven't heard it said out loud. I've just been reading it, and I've watched his tape and his highlights and stuff like that. Out of UCLA. First of all, with how underwhelming our receivers have been this season, that's the first thing. Point number 2, with the fact that the next regime may not prioritize re-signing Curtis Samuel. Again, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, we'll talk about that later. A lot of veterans that mean a lot to this team right now, but the next regime may not be attached to them enough. Especially, I feel like Curtis Samuel, out of all of the guys I just named, but it's between him and Cameron Curl that we may not re-sign just because they're asking for too much money. I feel like Antonio Gibson and Kendall Fuller, we may just not want to re-sign them just because the next regime just doesn't really care for them that much. I feel like they'll probably at least try to re-sign Curtis Samuel and Cameron Curl, but I feel like they may just price themselves out of it. But we'll see. I hope we bring back Curtis Samuel, but the next regime may just not prioritize him. Play number 3, with the fact that Jahan Dotson hasn't looked like a 1st round pick this season, and then number 4, the fact that we still don't have a receiver on the roster taller than 6'1" is crazy since we let Cam Sims go. And even before we cut Cam Sims, because even when he was here, we didn't throw the ball to him. So I've been screaming get a tall receiver for a while. Look at Jake Bobo, what he's doing for the Seahawks. I was screaming get him in like the 7th round, 6th round, and look what he's doing. You know how much we could use a tall receiver right now? Man, oh man. I mean, granted, having elite catching tight ends will help, but I just want a receiver that's big. And not only is my boy Michael Sturdivant, however you pronounce it, from UCLA, my boy, I'm just gonna call him J. Michael. Not only is he 6'3", that's a great jump ball, contested catch, red zone threat receiver type of guy, but he's also projected to run a 4.38 40 time, dog. He will probably be one of the fastest receivers in our receiving group. And he's 205 pounds, y'all. Don't forget that. My boy J. Michael has topped out at a 23.2 miles per hour this season for UCLA so far. And he also bench pressed close to 300 pounds and squatted almost 400 pounds this past offseason. And most importantly, he has great hands. Throw it up to him, he'll catch it. After the combine and the entire draft process, he probably won't even make it to the 4th round. But for now, while people are asleep, I'm still him on my mock draft. That's the theme for a lot of these. A lot of these guys, I don't predict them to actually end up, by the time we get to April, making it to these points in the draft. But again, I know I keep repeating myself, but I want to emphasize that a lot of people have these guys even lower than where I'm taking them in my mock draft on their big board. So you can't be mad at me. That's blame them for sleeping on them. Round 6, 183rd overall pick, guard Layden Robinson. This is a guy that I really like. We have solid options at guard. And I still think Cosme has Brandon Sheriff level potential at right guard. But as far as left guard goes, they aren't exactly great yet. I really like the potential of a Sadiq Charles, if healthy, and a Chris Paul battling it out for the starter left guard spot again for the 2nd straight summer. But it wouldn't hurt to bring in a high ceiling guard to develop to add to that group. It just really wouldn't. So, and when it comes to high ceiling players, my boy Layden Robinson, man, he may be able to sneak to the later rounds, dog. I'm telling you, look no further than elite playing. If you're trying to get an elite high ceiling player in a later round, the best program to look at is the elite recruiting. Let me stop. The elite recruiting paying, but terrible development and coaching, Texas A&M. Layden Robinson has elite physical tools, but is very raw. So again, a Texas A&M problem. If he was probably playing for another team, like say for example a Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, he probably would have reached his potential. He'd probably be going in the top 3 rounds at the very latest. But this is a guy with all of the high-end tools to be a top 3 round pick, a day 1 or 2 pick. But you go to ATM where they don't develop guys. They just did all that they could to pay for recruit elite talent, and then you just end up being forgotten about over there. We may be able to steal him this late in the draft in the 6th round. I mean, you could argue he may even have 1st round talent. Now, he's so raw that he may not even be able to contribute to the team in 2024. You may have to wait until 2025 before he's playable, but I'm telling you, with the elite traits, it's a little bit different than the Braden Daniels situation where, I mean, that guy just doesn't even have enough weight. You could talk about arm length and all kinds of stuff. This guy has everything you need. He's just literally raw. That's it. We can work on that. Maybe at a certain point in the 2024 season, maybe he surpasses Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul. You never know. But I believe in his talent. Why not take that risk in the 6th round? I wouldn't even chance a guy with elite tools like that making it to the 7th. I'm not going to lie. And then lastly, round 7, 224th pick overall, I have us taking safety Lathan Ransom from Ohio State. Will the next regime actually even like Derek Forrest just in general? And then will the next regime even like Cameron Curl enough to pay him the money that he's probably asking for? Because it's probably a lot from what we've been hearing from his dad and stuff like that. I hope he resigns for a fairly cheap, team-friendly, long-term deal. Maybe not even necessarily team-friendly, but not like top 8, top 5 safety money that it seemed like he was asking for at first. But I'm not sure how likely that is, especially since the next regime may not value his ability to basically just be like the glue of the defense. Because it's not, I mean, they're probably just going to look at his stats and be like, he doesn't get interceptions. He doesn't really force fumbles like that. Especially not at the rate that a lot of these top safeties that are getting the big money do in the NFL. They may try to lowball him a little bit. They may come in and not really have that same attachment that Rivera and company have to him because they found him as like a 7th round gem. To the next regime, he's probably just a safety that doesn't get interceptions asking for a lot of money. I hope, me as Rico Street Scores, hope we keep Cameron Crowe long term. I'm just hoping it's for cheaper than what it seems like it may end up being. But I'm just telling you why it's likely that Cameron Crowe may now walk with the next regime coming in. And so maybe they believe in Quan Martin and Percy Butler to be the future of our safety group. That's the safety tandem mixed with Derek Forrest. But I'm not willing to bank our entire 2024 season on those 2 or 3, even as high of a ceiling as those guys have. And I love all of their potentials. I love their potentials, but we need some floor to be playable, y'all. We need some floor out there to hold this defense down while we're trying to really win games in 2024. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go get a safety in free agency, honestly, just in case. This may be another thing where we go get a safety. It may not even be like a top of the line safety. Like, I think linebacker and edge rush, I wouldn't be surprised if we go for the top of the line guys. But you never know. Maybe we go out for Antoine Whitfield, a Geno Stone, a Grant Delpit, Kyle Duggar, Xavier McKinney, Julian Blackmon, Jordan Whitehead, Deshaun Elliott, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You just never know. Maybe we go with like a safer, really good safety and then try to draft one maybe in the late round. And the reason I have us taking Layden Ransom from Ohio State, because for my final pick of the draft, I'm not even going to really sit here and act like this is just about to be some future Hall of Famer. But long story short, because I mean, like, it's the last pick of the draft. I'm not about to sit here and play with y'all and act like, man, this guy's, bro, he's about to start a safety for us and dominate. He's the next Ed Reed. I'm not even going to try to do that. But he's quicker than he is fast. He's a physical hitter and shows good instincts. Who does that literally sound like? Cameron Curl, but just a little bit bigger, so he has the potential to tackle better. And he also, from what I've seen so far in college, flashes better ball skills coming out of college than Cameron Curl did. So maybe when he gets to the NFL level, he even has better ball skills than Cameron Curl has. So you could probably consider this a slightly higher ceiling Cameron Curl, maybe. We'll see, though. But Cameron Curl, I mean, coming out of the draft, nobody expected him to be as good as he is. So maybe my boy Layden Ransom never becomes as good as Cameron Curl ever was. But, hey, it's worth the risk in the 7th round. You feel me? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. That's the end of this mock draft. I literally feel like this is the type of draft that can propel us into being playoff contenders immediately. Like, as of 2024, it won't take like more than a year. We wouldn't have the weakness of trying to figure out anything besides like edge rusher or linebacker and free agent technically. And again, the linebacker that I have us taken from NC State, I think he can solve that year one. It may take him a couple of weeks, but I think he could be a truly really good linebacker again, like a Jack Campbell in an essence, maybe like a baby version of Jack Campbell. Same type of athlete and all that though. So I think with this type of mock draft, the only weakness we got to worry about is making sure we get an edge rusher in free agency, maybe a safety. If we don't re-sign Cameron Curl, a safety in free agency as well. Other than that, we good. We have so much money to spend in free agency. I don't know why we wouldn't be able to achieve that and get this draft haul. And this is actually pretty realistic. If we're talking about especially trading back from 5 to 9 and the picks we would get into return, this is actually a pretty realistic scenario. So this is possible. It's going to be really hard to achieve it because, again, a lot of these guys are very slept on. And I think by the time we get to April, things will change. A lot of these guys are going to shoot up draft boards. But as of right now, a lot of these guys are best kept secrets. I hope they stay this way till April. But yeah, man, I really appreciate all of y'all. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Be on the lookout for more mock drafts. Be on the lookout for free agency mocks as well. Entire offseason mocks, like these are, we get this GM, this head coach, this defensive coordinator, then we do this in free agency, then we do this in the draft, because now that we've already addressed some needs in free agency, we go into the draft and we have to finish what we started and get this team ready to make the playoffs. So be on the lookout for so much content. I'm working on a video where it's going to be the best GM candidates, then another video, best head coach candidates, all of that type of stuff, while also still live doing what I can to talk about what happens in the games. I will not be able to live stream this upcoming Dolphins game, and then we're in a bye week after that, but then I'll be back with the live streams during the games. We'll have the call-in shows and all that, and then after games, of course, I will be doing my review videos and all of that. So stay tuned for all of the usual content, plus all of the extra team building content I'm working on as well. And man, I really appreciate y'all. Again, YouTube is no longer tripping, so now we're back to full operation. Y'all can donate through the super chat directly through YouTube if you want to. You can support the channel by becoming a channel member. I'm working on exclusive videos for y'all. Be on the lookout for those within the next couple of weeks. Just be on the lookout for so much stuff, man. This channel, you know, I get busy. The off season is when I do my best work, and I'm starting early. And then with a potentially top 5 pick in the first round to start with, oh, we about to have some fun, man. So make sure y'all stay tuned. And without further ado, man, I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.